Greetings and salutations, folks. Welcome back to Death Stranding. We're about to begin our journey east. We traveled across the country west. Now we're just going back to where we started. But before we go, actually, we're going to be also making a stop by Peter Engelbert's place, because apparently Peter Engelbert, who was never at home, he was never at home, and he's like, oh, I was busy doing something else. He was actually Higgs. Dear Sam, mind if I ask you a personal question? I heard you're a Strand. The president raised you like you were her own, right? Which means you must have grown up with Amelie. What was she like? I've only seen her hologram. I mean, I get it. Security precautions, can't risk letting separatists and terrorists know where she is, but man, what I wouldn't give to really meet her, to see her in the flesh. She seems like such an amazing person, and that's just from the holo messages. If you ever do catch up with her, I hope you'll tell me all about it. Alright, let's get out of here. We've got a long trek to do. I'm going to try to formulate some things that I've been thinking about in regards to the game. Specifically the exploration aspect of it. Is there any materials that I could use to construct things here? Or would they all be in my private locker? All I've got is a blood bag and boots. Interesting. What exactly happened to all of my stuff? All of my stuff is probably in Edge Knot City. So let us make 3 ladders, 3 climbing anchors, 3 more blood bags, another pair of boots, and a power skeleton or an all-terrain skeleton? I've preferred the power skeleton largely this entire time, so we'll go with that. Some gloves, just in case we run into mules or terrorists. Let's take 2 non-lethal and 1 riot. And let's load all of them, then auto-range the cargo, then put on that. Let's put on the gloves, auto-range. Alright. So now we are equipped again, and I think a friend of mine made this point, is that unless you're building roads, you really do have everything you need. But, let's see, where are we trying to go? We're trying to go all the way up there. But Peter Engelbert is there. So that's custom marker. So let's try to avoid the mules. Let's take the path there. Take the path to Mountain Knot. I don't want to bother going through the snow-capped mountains again. But it also might be the safest route, because it goes past those guys. But it might be a good idea to go that way, because it might be faster. And then go to there, and Peter. Okay. Let's see how well this goes. in the meantime... Oh, hold on.
Sam, it's Hartman. Be advised that chiral density in regions predisposed to strandings has increased dramatically. No doubt Beach is to blame. BTs drawn into our world under these circumstances may be affected in unpredictable ways.
Well, I suppose that's good to know. So basically, I'm going back through again, and it's slightly on hard mode. Oh, hold on. Nope, there are no cryptobiotes there. I believe I probably am out of cryptobiotes. Let's swing in here. Am I on the right path? Kinda, sort of. Where does this go? I've never used a zipline in this game. Might as well be a first. Okay, so I've been thinking about the way this game has exploration. Like, there are hidden preppers, but I don't think I've ever really felt the necessity of reaching them because, for one, I don't necessarily feel like it. And for two, it's a pretty big map. I don't really feel like wandering around. And for three, a lot of the missions in the game are generally very linear. You're expected to just more or less go forward, and that's about it. Is this too deep? It is safe. Except for that spot right over there. But I was thinking about, like, the main loop of the gameplay. The delivering packages, taking things to preppers, activating the chiral network. Let's collect some cryptobiotes, because we will probably need them later. And the direction we are heading is in the right one. There we go. And I was wondering, like, what else, what other directions they could have taken the game in, because overall, like, so I was reading some other reviews of the game, and one review referred to the game as one note, which I feel it's definitely, like, that would be an unfair statement. There are, even though all of your missions are generally the same, take thing from point A to point B, I would still argue that there's enough variety in the atmosphere that it creates unique challenges. Nope. Remove marker. Now where... So I just need to more or less head straight a bunch. But there's not really that much for Sam to do. Oh, there's a bike. I'll see if I can drive that. There's not really much that Sam does. The way that Sam interacts with the world is largely just figures a way to maneuver around it. And I wonder, like, are there any other things that they could have done? Like, the focus, I feel, in regards to the development of the game, is definitely on the delivering of cargo. A lot of time is spent figuring out the physics of it. And if I wanted to, which I don't, but if I wanted to, I could spend time delivering cargo between areas, develop relationships between the porters, get like 5-star ratings. Also, the Aurora Borealis in this part of the country, right in the middle of my kitchen. Like, because for me that's still that's even more kind of a repetitive task. Is that largely, if I wanted to develop those relationships, I'd be spending a lot of time. But for people who are into this game, that essentially incentivizes more gameplay, more reason to, and I'm sure you do get rewards out of it. You get rewards out of finding the hidden preppers, which is something I never really managed to do. You get rewards out of finding hidden stuff, like there are a lot of little things I didn't do. Such as finding any of the glowing lights. I don't think I've actually used not a spa, but a
Pathetic. Whatever. Fuck it.
heading back east. Yep. What do you have for me? Hey Sam, you ever drop by the safe house I built you? Tried to report back to the director once I had that thing up and running, but I never heard nothing back. No heart of gold, after all. No manners, neither. Man, I could have just cried after all the trouble I went to, and between you and me, maybe I did just a little. Not so much as a nice job. That's the least a guy can expect after a trek like that, don't you think? But right when I was about to give up on life, an angel appeared to save me. That's right, Fragile. That sweet little ray of sunshine whisked me right back here in an instant. She seemed awful tired, though. It had me a little worried. There's something in the air here in Mountain Knot City. Something funky. Plus, Lochna's up run off somewhere. But you're okay, right, Sam? I damn well hope so. We're here for you, and we're praying that you make it. Keep fighting the good fight. But, like, I look at all these features in the game, and part of me wonders, like, if a lot of the time spent in development was in expanding content rather than refining content. Now, like, you look at the development cycle of this game, and a large amount of, I want to say the first half of it, was largely probably concept art behind the scenes, and Hideo going around looking for an engine for the game. So he went to, like, pretty much, like, nearly every Sony studio. Ended up going with the engine from Guerrilla Games, which is definitely pretty solid. But then, like, consider even the most powerful game engine would still find it taxing when you consider the idea that you're creating a game in which your character has to be able to interact with nearly the entire world. Can I... Excuse me? There we go. Has to... Yeah, like, you have to be able to climb everything. There's so much... and it's not just the interactions, it's the physics interactions. It's the actual ability to see what's in front of you the entire time. The ability to render so much information. Almost ruined. This trike is not going to make it. That's okay. Hold on. There are mules in this area? Weird. So yeah, a large amount of time was creating that, and then you consider like all the different things you can do in this game, whether it's from combat, the way that you interact with enemies, sneak by enemies, the vehicular physics. Like, part of me wonders whether they spent themselves so thin that not everything really gets that same amount of refinement. And what I'm referring to is, like, there's a certain sense, I think, of when the camera pans back, when the camera pans back, and low roar comes out on the audio, there's this recognition, that's desire, that the idea that you're driving along the road is a peaceful journey, is a relaxing hike. Am I going in the right direction? Not really. I think I'm a little bit off to the left. And then when you combine it with everything else, you combine it with the timefall and the BTs and the mules and the terrorists and the package physics, sometimes the game can be a little bit on the definitely on the frustrating side. Especially missions where they're like handing you 200 kilograms of stuff. And they're like, hey, we want you to trek this through giant snowy mountains. And I look at that and I think, like, how necessary is the delivering of packages in regards to the message of the game? Like, the message of the game, in my eyes, is going to be something closer to, you're trying to connect America. You're trying to connect each individual porter to each other. But let's park here for a second, and actually, let's see if I can turn off this music. Because the last time it has shown up, it has caused problems. Oh, hello.
Sam, do you copy? I've been looking into Clifford Unger and wanted to share my thoughts.
And they are?
To recap, Unger was a U.S. Special Forces operative.
Yes.
Whose retirement roughly coincided with the Death Stranding. After he left the service, he somehow became involved in the early BB experiments. However, he died before they ended.
Most likely shot by Die Hard Man.
Clear. I'm beginning to suspect that these battlefields of his are at least partially sustained by his enduring emotional attachments. Anger, resentment, regret. I'm pretty sure it's got something to do with the BB experiments. That much seems clear given his repeated attempts to steal Lou. Cliff seems to be driven by a compulsion to reclaim our BB, as if that will make him whole again. A compulsion so powerful that he was not only able to drag himself from the depths of hell, but bring a piece of that hell along with him. One thing's for sure, he's nothing like a BT. We need to know the whole story about his death and his connection to the BB experiments. I'll keep digging and let you know what I find, Sam.
Okay, thank you for the plot summary. So yeah, this might come up as a copyright claim. It means this video is going to be demonetized by me, might have ads. But then again, my channel isn't even monetized yet. Anyway. Ooh, actually there's a timefall shelter right up here. So I can drive through here and maybe resurrect my motorcycle. But like, I wonder how much like the package delivering service really reflects on that main thematic of the game, that being connecting everybody. Because on a realistic level, why would you slap all that cargo on one person? I'm going to pass time in the timefall shelter. The weather has not cleared. Great. I can check You know, it's been so long since I've checked the weather that I don't even know how anymore. Alright, let's carry on. Like, I would figure, like, the basic idea of if you want to try to reconnect everybody with each other, the basic idea would have to be the start of the chiral network. That I look at as like, a very big central theme of the story. Because activating the chiral network, like, every prepper, every city is separate from each other. And the activation of the chiral network brings everybody together. You're building connections between individuals, between people, between the country, and that's how you're going to save everybody, is by rebuilding the country. Okay. What the hell? Nobody invited you guys over here. Alright, that's okay. Jump. Sir. Now, all I need to do is I need to walk like a few more steps forward. Alright. I believe he did mention that the weather was going to make the BTs a bit odd. Let's also try to get to this truck with its low durability. So yeah, like the actual travel around to preppers to reconnect them, that I feel like is the most important core aspect of the gameplay. As in like a destination sense. The delivery of the packages, not so much. It feels like that's more of like a game thing, because you wouldn't just cover somebody in just so much crap. Though, and then the second thing is there's the whole way, like you're always being sent on a very kind of linear path from point A to point B because of the package delivery. Wait, I probably should finish my first thought. Is package delivery for service versus country connection. Now, they emphasize that certain things cannot be delivered from point A to point B, like organic substances. But as long as like a place has the materials, but like having those materials makes a lot of the journey relatively arduous. You're constantly finding yourself in a situation where you're like, or should I say I'm finding myself in a situation where like, okay, I've got some cargo to take here, but I don't feel like dealing with the problems that come along with it. Like these special alloys over here. They might be useful for something, but I'm not even going to bother with it. Also, is that Hartman's lab right up there? So I'm almost there. That's nice. Although now that I think about it, I probably should have brought the all-terrain attachment, simply because I've got all these mountains to go through first. And the power suit is not going to help me with that. Oh well. So... And also, like, the entire idea of package delivery creates that more repetitious act of delivery. You're always taking things from point A to point B. So, like, that's what I think leads to that reviewer who I mentioned, but did not name, for calling it a one-note game. Because you're always just kind of, like, going from point A to point B. Let's stop by this private room, rest, and then hit the road. And I feel as though a fix for that would have been, instead of having missions that say, hey, we need you to go to this person specifically to deliver them stuff. And that's the thing. Because you're always delivering stuff, that creates that linearity. Because you're always having to take something from point A to point B, that makes the gameplay itself a little bit more linear, because you're always taking... nope. No. Oh, that's circle. You're always kind of having to follow that loop, that line. And I wonder, like, let's say they removed the delivery aspect of the game, but they kept the chiral connections. And instead of saying, hey, we need you to make deliveries, or hey, we need you to go to this prepper specifically. Like, what if you were actually able to view the map and see it's the chiral network on it? Because that's one of the things that I would have definitely preferred, because you don't really get to see the grid that the chiral network covers. Like, you see the map for... Like, you look at this map here, and I don't really know, like, what areas I might have missed. It just gives me a set of constellations, and that's about it. But, like, what if you were able to look at a map similar to, say, something like Saints Row, where you can see the areas you've already covered. You see the areas you've taken control. And let's say in the game, it didn't require you to go to a specific prepper. Actually, hold on. Let's like this thing a bunch, because this was very convenient. Let's say it didn't require you to go to a specific prepper. Let's say you stepped out of East, not City, I think it was called. And it just said, go out, explore, find. And then it gave you, like, some basic tools in which to use to find preppers. And you were like, okay, I know there's a prepper here, because this area is not on the chiral network. And there might be main ones that are more specific for activating the chiral network. Or it might be something, let's say, like, ooh, shall we get a truck? Let's grab a reverse strike, because I like the reverse strike more. Alright, which way am I heading? So let's say it had a main objective. Oh, sorry, I was going to make an analogy. So let's say, like, you play Star Fox. Like the original Star Fox, Star Fox 64. You have a starting point, and you have an ending point. And on the way there, you have to go through various planets in order to reach the end. The path that you choose is going to be unique based on which planets you decide to go through. So, but ultimately you create this kind of connection between planets as you go from that beginning planet to the end planet. And I feel as though this game could have borrowed a little bit of that ideology. Is you start off at East Knot City, and your goal is to go to West Knot City. and you have to connect the chiral network to it. Like, what if you were able to view the chiral network as various blocks, per se? And, like, let's say you had to go from East Knot City to Port Knot City, and from there you were able to take a boat from Port Knot City to Lake Knot City. And you wouldn't be able to go directly to Port Knot City to go there because you have to activate its chiral network. So essentially you create you search out preppers, you search out locations based on their locations on the empty chiral network grid. You find them, and then you activate them. Let's see, I'm almost at Mountain Knot City, which is fine. Like, I feel that would encourage the player to more specifically explore areas, to plop down watchtowers, to use those watchtowers to view the entire area around them, to climb higher up. And in a sense, it almost makes this game a little bit like Assassin's Creed, if it went in that direction. Because if you're always kind of searching for those areas and you're moving higher up, you're essentially creating viewpoints as players to climb in order to get that best perspective. Is it going to be snowing the whole way? Because that's not okay, alright? But because I've always had very specific destinations, my question was never, what is in this other direction? My question was always, how do I get from point A to point B in the most efficient manner? Let us use this to regenerate our battery. And figure out, let's see where we're at right now. Okay, so we're more or less out of the snow. We're going to just cross over there, circle around through the terrorists, and then over to Peter Engelbert. So I suppose we're making decent time. Although it is very foggy. That is unrelated to the time that we're making. But yeah, like having very specific objectives. I suppose if I was ever to play this game again, then I would take this more slow going. I would spend more time. But I don't see myself doing that. Or at the very least, I definitely wouldn't see myself recording doing all that. Because it is very repetitive. The tasks themselves become very repetitive because of that. And... wow. This snow can go away. As it is highly inconvenient. But yeah, that's what I've been thinking about lately, in regards to the chiral connections, the package delivering. Like, what could have been done to make this a more refined game? I've also been wondering, like, what could have also been done to create more variety. For instance... no. Okay. For instance, the mules and the terrorists, as a enemy faction, are more or less just faceless bad guys, without clear motives or goals or anything. They're just there. Outside of the cities, outside of the prepper stations, Sam interacts with nobody other than the mules and the terrorists. So I also find myself wondering, like, if there was a way for them to kind of integrate characters outside of the prepper stations and outside of the chiral network activation into the game, because you're always, all of your character interaction is always based around go from point A to point B, and then get a cutscene. And then somebody talks to Sam. Sam does not say anything, because he's reserved like that. And then you move on. Like, what if during your travels you actually did have to solve problems? You did have to solve problems besides that couldn't be solved by taking something from point A to point B. Like, what if you actually met characters out in the wasteland? And that, I think, leads me to one of my older complaints about the game, which is the fact that whenever you're delivering a person, you're always packaging them up and slapping them on your back, which is something that I still find extremely odd. Like, this person has feet, has legs. Surely they can do some walking themselves. Maybe they can hold on to some things. You know, as Samwise Gamgee might say, help me lighten the load. Ah, it's the terrorists. Who would have expected them over here? No, not those special alloys. There's no getting them back now. Alright, what direction am I heading? I should still be heading north. Okay. Does this motorcycle have headlights? Because it would be definitely useful if these vehicles have headlights, so I can see the terrain directly in front of me. Like, whenever you're traveling with somebody, and I feel like this is part of the game engine bit, is figuring out physics and collision. Like, they spent the time to figure out how to make Sam interact with things. The entire idea of figuring out how to make Sam interact with things and other people also interact with things who are with Sam, and have some sort of AI that enables them to climb terrain. Like, that would have been very problematic. And I still find myself returning to a question a friend of mine had asked me. Oh, battery's running out, but I see a generator right there. And that is this game fun? I don't know if I necessarily have a...
Sam,
Oh,
you're not
everybody's
going to
cutting
believe
in
what I
here.
found. It's about the BB experiments, their true purpose.
To expand the chiral network.
According to official records, they were continued in secret on the order of President Strand, supposedly with the primary objective of developing BT detectors and preventing void-outs. Any advancements that could be applied to the fields of chiral communications and beach research were meant to be of purely secondary benefit. But it turns out, that's just a cover story. The truth is, Sam, BBs were originally conceived as catalysts for the operation of the chiral network. They're
Which explains why the network key was a BB.
For that very reason, every single one you've brought into the fold. It was probably Amelie herself who installed them as she moved west with the first expedition, carrying out her mother's grand plan, making sacrifice after sacrifice on the altar of progress.
And that also explains why the network key is itself unique. It is a BB.
Thought had to be done. Also, America could be whole again. But I'm starting to wonder if it didn't cost her her soul. The chiral network is our greatest creation, our proudest achievement, and our guiltiest sin. I don't know how to feel about it all. Maybe if we knew more about Cliff and the BB experiments, we'd be better placed to judge.
Probably.
I'll be in touch.
Alright. Let's vamp up the... Vamp up. We're not going to vamp up anything. I'm not playing Metal Gear Solid 2. Let's ramp up the battery. And then we're going to cut over this way. Although it seems like there's a path here that I'm not particularly aware of. And I wonder if I could just go here and avoid the whole mess. Yeah. But there are probably ghosts there. There are probably ghosts. And by ghosts, I mean BTs. That's okay, I've got a motorcycle. These BTs ain't got nothing on my motorcycle. But this rock does.
Still got it.
Although that whole conversation they had, I think I've almost forgotten to go back to what I was saying in regards to, like, is this game fun? I'm glad I played this game. It is definitely interesting and it's definitely unique. An ambitious title that is unlike anything else. But I feel like at times it can be very frustrating. But the entire idea of, like, sacrificing the BTs for the sake of the country reminds me of a line from A Scanner Darkly by Philip K. Dick, which goes something like, I don't remember the quote specifically, so sorry. But it goes something like, to sacrifice somebody without them even knowing it. Like, the BTs have been sacrificed, but there is no awareness of this sacrifice. Like, consider the entire concept of the soldier that throws himself over the live grenade to save his soldier buddies. That is a knowing sacrifice. Versus, say, the baby who doesn't understand what consciousness means and that it actually is not in its womb anymore, being used as a means to reconnect the nation. Like, doesn't even have a concept as to what the country, what a nation is. Which I suppose then leads to... like, is it conscionable to do such an act? Like, are we essentially saying, hey, we're relying on our survival based on the sacrifice of these stillborn babies that were removed from their mother's wombs? It's definitely monstrous. It's definitely on the monstrous side of things. But ultimately, I feel as though, like, the path of research they took, that being, like, pulling chiral network energy from the area where, like, the energy crisis in this game is not too different from, say, the energy crisis in the new Doom games. If you're not too familiar with the energy crisis in Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, the issue that comes up is that everybody's using Argent energy. Earth is using Argent energy in 2016. Other entities are using Argent energy in Doom Eternal. But at one point it is discovered that Argent energy is powered by the tortured and enslaved souls of the dead. Like, it is literally that. Like, people out there are able to enjoy toast from their toaster because of the tortured and enslaved soul of their loved ones, which is definitely monstrous. But the way that, like, it's framed in Doom 2016 is that Argent energy is a necessary sacrifice for the world. With supplies at a minimum, like, the world has to be connected somehow. And, like, Death Stranding isn't necessarily too far off. It is, like, the chiral network is them connecting directly to the beach, directly to hell itself, to pull in, not necessarily from tortured and damned souls, but essentially pulling in energies from this area in order to power itself up. But in order to do it, it uses the babies and their umbilical cord, their connection to their brain-dead mothers in the beach as a catalyst. Which is definitely on the monster side. Like, none of these preppers are actually told how the chiral connection works. But here's the question that's asked. The question that I feel this game is then asking is similar to, say, the hypothetical question. Like, let's say if you see a train... I'm sure you know where this is going now. Let's say if there's a train going down the rails, and there's a person tied to the tracks. You can change the direction of the train to a different set of tracks. But on that... Sorry, let me flip that around. Train's going down the road. It's heading towards a group of people tied to the tracks. You can change the direction of the train, but it'll go into one person on the other track. Ultimately, either a group of people will die, or one person will die. But when that one person dies... Oh, hello.
Hey, Sam, I see you're coming up on Lake Knot. Stay strong. We're all rooting for you to finish the job and come home safe. By the way, I've made more progress in a certain investigation. It seems that Clifford Unger willingly put his own child in the care of the scientists conducting the BB experiments. But he did so completely unaware of their true intentions. This is pure speculation, but I think when Cliff found out about their plans, he attempted to reclaim custody. And after he failed, the BB remained in the program's care. In which case, he would have every reason to bear a grudge towards the president, the woman who allowed it all to happen, don't you think? But just because President Strand is dead, doesn't mean his hate died with her. No, I think he redirected it towards Bridges. Towards you and Amelie and anyone close to the director. And now that hate is driving him to set in motion the last stranding, to bring an end to the world as we know it. Why else would Cliff hold Amelie hostage on the beach? He must know that she's an EE. There's no time to lose. You have to save her and the director. Though I still don't understand how he managed to travel to her beach in the first place. There must be more to their relationship. I'll see what I can find.
All right, keep up the good work. So yeah, if you do like the act of switching, like I think that's the concept that people also find a little bit on the trickier side, is that the act of switching the train's rails from one track to the other is a purposeful act. It is an act in which an individual, like you are actually taking action in the sacrifice of a person's life. There's something to be said about doing nothing and allowing something to happen versus doing something and causing something to happen. But ultimately, if I was asked that question, ultimately I suppose the answer would have to be I'd have to switch the tracks. But then again, there's this other question, whose life is being sacrificed? For instance, I played through Life is Strange 2 on this channel. And in Life is Strange 2, the ending I went with was the ending in which Chloe lives. The ending in which, for Life is Strange 1, where Max and Chloe ride off into the distance. Instead of saving the town, instead of saving the group, I saved the one person, which is itself interesting. It's like the opposite end of this question, because in order to save the individual, you have to stay still and do nothing. Sorry, let me rephrase. Sorry. In order to save the group, in order to save the town, you have to stand still and let Chloe die.
Got a moment, Sam? It's about the director.
Okay.
So there's no way he could have made the jump to Amelie's beach if they didn't share a strong personal connection, right? Well, I looked, and I couldn't see one. The network should have contained something, anything, but there was nothing whatsoever. His entire life prior to his tenure with Bridges has been redacted.
Huh.
His name, his past, everything. There's no telling who he was.
Was his name really Clifford Unger?
Another possibility. What if it isn't the director and Amelie who have a connection, but the director and Clifford Unger? And what if that connection is what facilitated the director's jump to Amelie's beach? If it's those two who have a personal history, then it might explain why Cliff is holding the director hostage as well.
Well, we can tell that they have personal history.
Doesn't answer the bigger question. How the hell did the two of them end up on Amelie's beach?
Sam, Hartman here. There's something else I'd like you to consider.
Okay.
A guess, albeit an educated one, concerning Cliff's objective. Somehow, with the aid of the chiral network, our individual beaches have begun to coalesce, resulting in the formation of a single massive seam. Should this process continue, there is a risk that BTs will flood across into our world, bringing about a Death Stranding on a heretofore unprecedented scale.
So what you're saying is we are
Clifford
bringing about the
Unger's
apocalypse.
battlefields and my own beach appear to be unaffected by this phenomenon, existing entirely in isolation. They do not and have never intersected with others. But what if there were another class of beach, one that exists on a higher plane, that was responsible for setting this process in motion? And what if the beach in question were none other than Amelie's? Cliff may have summoned the director, but I believe his true aim was to seize control of Amelie's beach.
Because Amelie's beach is connected to everything.
Beach, and trigger the last stranding. It's the only rational explanation for Cliff's actions, which is why you have to stop him.
If Hartman's right, then we're in serious trouble. Using the chiral network in Amelie's beach to trigger the last stranding? That's why Higgs went after Amelie, wasn't it? If it was Cliff who put him up to it, yeah, it all fits. With the last stranding, he'll finally have his revenge against the world that stole his life and his child. You've got to stop him, Sam. You've got to make the jump to Amelie's beach as soon as possible. Get in and get her back. It's our only hope. If you can't, then we're all doomed.
Alright, I'll see what I can do, but judging by the storm above Lake Knot City, I think I'm going to call it for now. Got any suggestions for something to play next? Leave them down in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have yourselves a good night.